Hello, my name's Lynne and I'm an accredited Leicestershire tour guide and author of books and a blog about Loughborough, a small market town, which is the focus of my one-place study. Welcome to my talk, which is all about using all your senses to further your knowledge about your place. Your senses can surprisingly help you notice things you might not have been aware of before and lead you to research different aspects in your local history journey. My examples are mostly taken from Loughborough, but the suggestions I make are equally applicable and transferable to any place. If any of your own senses are impaired, it's quite possible your other senses are heightened, so you can still benefit from engaging these. Let's begin with a sense that is probably the first one that comes to mind: sight. Whilst out walking with my relatively tall husband, he has a tendency to shout, "Oh, look at that impressive," insert whatever you think might be impressive, "over there," where he sees herds of wildebeest sweeping majestically across the plain. All I see is a 6-foot hedge, and while pretty and interesting that might be, it's not what he was alluding to. This led me to thinking about what we see, and I concluded that we all see things differently, and we all see different things. Lynne tip 1. If you want to get a different perspective on your place, my tip here is to climb the nearest tower, go to the top of the car park or the top floor of a shop and see a unique view of your place. If your place is industrial, you might see the backs of old factory buildings, or you may get a glimpse of new factories in the distance. You might see how the Art Deco shops or the 14th century buildings and Art Deco factory are juxtaposed. And you might spot different roofing materials in use, some of which might just be local to your place. You'll get a unique view that helps you understand how the local housing has developed and that street you walk down thinking it's straight really is. Or you might see other tall buildings from a different perspective and note similarities or differences. All of this can help your research by offering a different viewpoint. Lynne tip 2. Seek out the detail. They're tiny bursts of information. Whether it's a rose adorning an Art Deco building, a slate gravestone showing the apprentice mason's practice marks, or an intriguing monogram challenge you to find out whose it is and why it's there. Lynne tip 3. Look up, down and all around. History is everywhere to be found, but sometimes well hidden. You might find some interesting clues about a building high up on the top. Other clues will be low down, closer to the ground. And much of it will be at someone's eye level. All these visual clues have a deeper story to tell and are crying out for you to delve into it. Let's now think about our hearing and about the sounds of your place. Lynne tip 4. Stand still for a minute, stop rushing, and just listen to the unique sounds of your place. A common sound across the land is the sound of the chiming of church bells. How might your ancestors have responded to the various peals? Maybe you can hear the hiss and sizzle of industry. Metal casting happens around the country, although bell founding is probably less common. The puffing and tooting of a steam train might remind us of days gone by. What would it have been like to be an engine driver or a passenger in your place in the golden age of steam? What attracts tourists to your place? Can you hear the chatter of the visitors and the calls of the stall holders at your place's market? How long has there been a market? And what sounds do you hear from your local wildlife? Is the pond natural or man-made? Sounds will be different depending on where your place is and what its history might be. Studying your place can be tricky, so let's see what can help you to come up smelling of roses. Lynne tip 5. Your sense of smell is usually underrated, but smells can be very evocative and memorable. Savour them. On your meander around your place, what smells stand out to you and invoke strong memories? In her 1943 novel Three Little Pigs, Agatha Christie puts Hercule Poirot to work. Towards the denouement, he says, "A whiff of jasmine scent stimulated Mr. Blake's memory immediately. We are all more influenced by smell than we know." Perhaps your place had a perfume factory, or other factories that had a particular smell. Are they still there? Or maybe you have waterways in or near your place. Canals and rivers have their own distinct smell. How has this changed down the years? The smell of woodworking or metalworking is so distinctive and can take you back in time. What industries are or were in your place? Were your ancestors involved? Maybe your place is in the countryside with its own types of smells. Are there specific animals or specific breeds with a history in your place? Perhaps your place has an annual fun fair. The smells from the fair will be similar across the country, but your local food outlets with your place's specialities will also yield some of your place's history. Taste can be an interesting sense to use in your research into your place. Lynne tip 6. What tastes do you and others associate with your place? What's the history behind these tastes? Maybe a brewery or a local restaurant. Perhaps you have a new brewery. Does your place have a history of brewing? And what about your place's pubs, a vital part of local history? Or perhaps you have a monastery near your place where they are continuing with old age traditions. Or perhaps your place is known for its natural resources and produce, this local spring water since 1571. Is your speciality locally grown or packaged at your place? Does your place produce a local cheese? What's the history behind the local cheese? Is it an old established business or newer? I was going to photograph a pork pie, but it got eaten before I could take the picture. So here's ye old pork pie shop building instead. But then I found another pork pie and photographed it before eating it. Eccles cakes, but I could just as easily have photographed Yorkshire tea cakes, Bakewell pudding, Coventry god cakes, Welsh cakes. What can your local foodstuffs tell you about the history of your place? What restaurants do you have in your place? And what can they tell you about the history of the place and the people in it? This photo is courtesy of Google Maps. I could never quite remember to take a photo before I went in and had a huge meal in our local Indian restaurant. Touch is a sense to be used with a little caution, and despite this picture, it's not something we just do with our hands. In tip 7, touch is another underrated sense, but it can tell you a lot about your place and lead you to ask questions. Barley brushes against your legs when it's young and growing. What crops grow in your local fields? And is there any particular reason? And when it's grown tall and ready to be harvested, it feels different and brushes up to your waist. The old wooden bench not only looks tatty and uninviting, but also feels hard and uncomfortable when sat on. Try the rounded bench, which feels smooth to the touch, and your bottom will thank you for finding a comfy place to sit. But what is this pretty bench all about, and what connection does it have to your place? There's a myriad materials used in your local pavements and roads which feel different beneath your feet. This extreme example is of Mount Sorrel granite set into tarmac, which might prompt you to ask, why is it there in the middle of the tarmac? Of course, we are more used to feeling with our hands and fingers, Bricks in this wall feel different. Perhaps they were made by different local makers. Touching things can lead them to change. The besocked leg is a well-loved feature of my place and is regularly touched, as you can tell by the difference in colour. Is there any similar evidence in your place of humans interacting with the environment? Becoming more aware of the everyday world around you involves more than just looking. Researching uses perception, and this should invoke all the senses, not just the visual, which is often the first one that comes to mind. One must also start to hear, smell, taste, and feel the world of the past one is trying to find. By awakening the senses, becoming more conscious of the world around you, and using this heightened way of perceiving the environment, you will be enriching your grasp of that past world and find new ways to enter it. Here are my references and sources. Thank you for listening, and I hope I've given you some ideas for new tools to help with your local and family history research, and that you will give yourself permission to slow down and at least stop, look and listen. After all, as W.H. Davies wrote, "A poor life this, if full of care, we have no time to stand and stare." Thank you.